My name is Bill. I'm here today just to demonstrate to you guys how to take a full arch zirconia arch from green stage to finish. We'd like to get this on a video format because there has been many questions on how to do this. Today I'm basically just going to take you step for step how I do it at home and from my lab, and hopefully I can show you that it's not difficult. It's pretty simple, but there is very little information out there, and I just like to show you the basic format how I do it so that you can do this at your lab in a safe, reliable manner. Okay, so here we have our freshly milled out zirconia arch. Now whether you hand milling or this comes out from CAD/CAM, my goal today is to show you how to finish this off. I want you to put the human experience back into this and not just let the milling unit decide what the finished product's going to be. So today I'm going to show you exactly how to work this green stage, that it becomes you and you've put your own personality into it. So the first step is obviously we're just going to be cutting off these holding tags over here. What I'm using here is just an old sintered diamond. You could use anything you want, a carbide, but this sintered diamond works really well for me. Okay, now we can move on to the next stage. Now, as you can see over here, the milling burrs cannot get into these interproximal areas. So what I want to do is I want to define these. And what I'm going to use is you can just take an old sintered cutting disc like this, and you start, same way you would work wax, you start just scraping it away and opening up these areas that the milling burrs can't get into. I see a lot of labs and technicians, they do not spend time on this, and this really will define your case and take it to the next level. Now at the same time, you can take a wax carver and just start defining these areas here where the milling burrs have a really hard time getting into. As you can see, one can carve this in the same way you carve wax. If you're using a good stainless steel carver, it doesn't leave any black marks on the white zirconia. This takes a little bit of time, but it makes a huge difference in the end. I'll go back and forth between the disc and the carver. Just really trying to open up these interproximals. The next step in the way that I do it is that we're going to be layering these front 6 the areas today. So I'm going to have to do a cutback. Now you could do this cutback in the CAD/CAM in the milling stage, but my personality, I like to do this by hand. I just find I get a better control. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in more or less the mamelon structure that I want to do my cutback. Just take this little red pencil. I'm going to mark the areas where I'd like to cut back to. Okay, so take my sintered diamond and start cutting back more or less 0.7 to a millimeter that allow me space for my ceramic. It can chip in this stage. I'm going to do one tooth at a time. It just allows me to gauge it, and using the other one as a comparison to see exactly how much I've cut back. And take just a smaller diamond to get into these finer areas. And take a sharp needle-like diamond. It really helped define these mamelons. Okay, so we've finished the first one, and I'll do this step for step and move on to the lateral. I try not to do all at the same time. It just helps me control more exactly how much I'm cutting back. In this canine, I'm not going to remove the incisal edge. I want to keep that as protection during function. So all I'm going to do is just scoop out this facial. The goal is here that we'll have the movements and the functions during occlusion 100% in zirconia. So this entire lingual surface will stay in zirconia, and we'll only layer the facial. The amount of zirconia I'm removing now is just going to be enough, basically, that I can layer incisal on. My layering is just going to consist of enamels. The goal here is when I go to color this, I'm going to be creating an ideal body shade on these areas over here, and that will enable me just to put incisal on top, saving me a lot of work. Now I've completed number 9, 10, and 11, and I've kept 6, 7, and 8 as is. It's just how it gives me a reference to how much I've cut back, and so once I've completed the 9, 10, and 11, I can use that as a reference and go and cut back 6, 7, and 8 again. It just gives me some kind of gauge. My goal is here is try to mimic number 9 the best I can. Like I said, obviously this can all be done during the milling process, but the goal of today is to show the people that don't have CAD/CAM that this can be done by hand. Once again, I use my number 10 as a reference. And I'm trying to mimic that. Not 100%, but just as close as possible. And once again on the canine, we're just going to scoop out this facial, leaving this entire lingual surface to help with the functional movements. And we're only removing 0.7 to a millimeter of surface area here. That'll give you more than enough space to layer your incisal on. Now, on these 4 anteriors, I want to create a little finish line that my ceramic can come over. So we're just creating a small little finish line here on the lingual surface that my layered ceramic can come over and just hook over here. It makes it so much more stronger and prevents chipping. Now at the same time, all these finish lines over here, I do not want this sharp. So I'll take a diamond and just bevel these down. The reason I do not want them sharp is that once we go to layering, it is really hard to hide those lines. The zirconia and the ceramic don't blend 100%, and it can form a junction there which will be visible when the patient smiles. So by beveling it down, it just helps me to wrap the ceramic over there, hiding that junction, so that we get just more coverage of ceramic onto the finish line. In the end, I'll come with a rubber wheel and get this even smoother than I can achieve with the diamond. Lastly, to finish this off, just to create differences in depth and to scatter light, I'll just create horizontal grooves like this. It mainly is going to help you scatter light. And there you go, we've completed our cutback. Okay, so we've completed our cutback. Now the goal of the next stage is, as you can see, the surface of this, the zirconia is still pretty rough. Now what I want to try and achieve is creating texture. I want to try and finish this off so that when we go to center, we never have to put a diamond to the finished zirconia again. I would take a small diamond like this, and I set the handpiece to 5,000 revolutions per minute. This is a really slow speed, and all I'm going to do, I'm going to rub it. I'm not grinding on it, but I'm basically just rubbing the zirconia at a really slow speed, and it starts smoothing it out, taking away all those milling burr scratches, creating a nice smooth texture. And at the same time, I can start shaping and adding a little personal touch to this frame. So as you can see, if you compare to this surface, we've created a nice smooth area. just removing all the irregularities and the roughness from the milling bow. I'd like to emphasize that you have to set this handpiece to a really low speed. I use 5,000 revolutions per minute. It is extremely slow, and at that speed it cannot really do any damage. You cannot dig into the zirconia and the burr won't run away with you. This area here where the tissue is, I'm not going to concentrate on that because we're going to be layering pink tissue over that. There's no need to try and smooth that off. I've found by using old diamonds it works much better. If you take a new one, it can be way too coarse, and the diamonds can dig in and create indentations into. At this stage, I'm just doing the linguals, and obviously we've done the buckle area. Once we've done the buckle and the lingual surfaces, we can come up here and start smoothing out the occlusal. Just the same. All we're doing is we're just rubbing, we're not really grinding. I hope you can see, if I compare it to this side, it's pretty rough. And if you compare it to just finished with that diamond, we've ironed out all the creases. We've got a nice smooth surface texture there. My goal here is to, these are all going to be 100% monolithic, and I want to create as much texture, surface anatomy as I can in this stage, because once we move into zirconia, it is impossible to grind into this. So I want to put all the work I can into the green stage. So we move on to the lingual. We're not removing any detail here. All we're doing is ironing out all the irregularities. Just creating a nice smooth surface texture. Okay, so now that we've done smoothing out and ironing out all the creases, my next stage, what I do is I take these just old waxing instruments, and you can just sharpen them slightly with a diamond impregnated wheel. Make them just really nice and pointy and sharp. And the goal with this is I want to climb in here and just really define the areas that the milling burr cannot get into. At the same time, we can just take the tip of the waxing instrument and create some surface texture. Understanding that it is so easy to do in this stage, but once this green stage is sintered, you're not going to be able to do this in the pure sintered zirconia. So as much work I can do now on the green stage, I'm going to put my time in. On occasion you will have to go back and just sharpen your waxing instrument. You're getting the best of both worlds. You've got the great technology of your CAD CAM systems, but you're putting the hand love back in, and it's not 100% automated CAD. Just adding that little personal touch to your zirconia. The whole goal of this process is to do 100% of the shaping in this green stage, so that when this frame is sintered, I never have to bring a diamond cutting disc or do any shaping in the sintered stage, because that's what grinding on a sintered frame, that's what causes cracks. So the only grinding I'm going to be doing on this frame afterwards is on my layered ceramic. That and cutting off these tags. As far as shaping is concerned, it happens here in the green stage. Now you can be pretty creative. You can use any old tools. This is a root canal file. I just glued it into this piece of plastic. But you can use any tool you want. But this little root canal file helps me just create that little final look I want, defining the surface here. And as you can see, it doesn't leave any black marks on the zirconia. It'll give you a nice natural surface texture. It can be pretty rough at this stage, because my next stage is going to be the rubber wheel. So if I make these a little too deep, I can just soften them up with the rubber wheel. Now the final stage, we're going to rubber wheel the arch, the frame. I like to use these little brown Derico clasp wheels. I found they work the best. They leave no marks on the white zirconia in the green stage. So they come in this shape. I'll put it on a mandrel and just use an old cutting disc to shape it to a nice little point. Now at this stage I want to be at least 5,000 revolutions per minute, and I'm just going to, same way I did with the diamond, just lightly rub the zirconia, and you'll see it'll start to even get a little shine. But you do not want to use a high speed, otherwise the rubber will definitely dig into the zirconia and run away with you. And we're just going to lightly rub, try and get rid of as much scratches and irregularities that we can. This is a little time consuming. Start one side and work yourself all the way through to the other side of the arch. I will have to go back and forth and just keep sharpening it up. As you can see, the brown dust comes off really easy. One of the things I do like about the GC Zirconia, it is not as sticky as the previous zirconias I've worked in the past. There are some zirconias on the market that have like an oily effect to it, which makes this stage really, really difficult because all this little brown dust adheres to the zirconia. But just a slight little blow of air and it comes off beautifully clean. If you want, you can even shape with the rubber wheel. If your waxing instrument left a sharp line or indentation, just rubber it out. Like I said before, this is a demo model, so I'm not concerned about any occlusal stops or contacts. But if this was in real case, I would have marked exactly where my stops were and stayed away from those areas. But today, I'm just going to rubber those away. When I first started working on these cases, I used to hit out in a sweat. I'd become really, really nervous. It was pretty nerve-wracking. I heard a lot of rumors that if you handled this too roughly or you ground with a diamond disc or a diamond, it would cause cracks. I'd find that not to be true. I found I can be pretty rough in the green stage. I've even dropped this frame once and lucky enough, no cracks. Here's our cutback area. You can see it's still pretty rough from where I was working with the diamond. So take the tip of the rubber wheel and just create nice smooth finish lines. Remember, anything sharp in ceramic or zirconia is not good. Sharpness induces cracks. So I like to round everything off. It's been a really safe way for me. Keeping stuff round, I've got it down to it. I just don't get any cracks anymore. At the same time, the access holes to your fixtures, just smooth them off, round it off. This is going to be really hard to smoothen off in the sintered stage. So if you can do it now, get it done. Okay, and now we're just going to do a cleanup. I like to just take any brush like this and clean off all the dust that you can. So with a combination of air and brushing, you want to make sure that this frame is as clean as possible for the infiltration. A good tip to have is to really wash your hands with a degreaser before working, so that it removes all the oil from your hands. This oil will stick to the zirconia, and I will explain in a later stage. That's why I like using acids, because the water-based colors, if there's oil on the surface, it has a really hard time penetrating. So just as some people use gloves, I just cannot work with gloves. So as best as you can, keep your hands as clean as possible from oil. Okay, so now we're going to color infiltrate. I am still a big fan of the zirconzane acids. I prefer this over the water-based colors. The reason I prefer to use the acids is for this reason. As I explained before, we have oil on our fingers. When touching this frame and the oil gets onto the white frame, it causes a layer. So the water-based stains have a really hard time penetrating into the structure when we have a oil or any other contaminants in this green stage. However, the acids penetrate 100%. So whatever contaminant is on the structure, it'll eat through that and just really penetrate deep. So you do not have to worry about, obviously you don't want too much oil on that from your fingers and that, but the acids neutralize that by just eating through that. Now, the negative thing about the acids, it's very corrosive. You have to be really careful, be in a well-ventilated area. You should work with gloves. I'm not working with gloves. I've been working a long time with this, so I know how to handle it. And you cannot use any metal instruments. As you can see, this brush is 100% organic. There's no metal. It's just all wood and brush and quill. Now, the other negative thing about the acids, they're all the same color. So whereas the water-based have dyes in them, so they can help you differentiate between the different layers. But what I do is I just use some of these McCormick's food colors, and I'll add a tiny drop to the acids, and I'm going to demonstrate that. So the first layer will be A3. I just use this little glass dropper to dispense a portion of A3. I'm going to add a tiny bit of this red food color, just one drop is all you need. I'll mix that up. Now with zirconzanes, they have this liquid called verdunner. It's just a thinning agent. You can use this to clean your brush when we're going to change to the different colors. I'm just pre-wetting the brush at this stage. There are two methods you can apply these colors. I'll demonstrate the first one. It's the one I don't use. There's a formula where you're going to take a wet brush and you're going to count on the cervical area 7 to 9 times. So with a saturated brush, you're going to count and you're going to stroke, and you're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and if needed, 8, 9. And you continue this sequence all the way around on the cervical area. Now I'll demonstrate that for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now my method is, I just cannot keep counting like that. My method is as follows. I'll just add the liquid, and at a certain stage, this liquid is going to start to pool up. You can see there it's starting to pool up. And when it does that, I know the acid is penetrated pretty deep. And I'll keep adding until I really get a big bubble of pooling, and it takes a while to penetrate. We'll add to this side. See, even over here where I've added 9 times, it's still absorbing a lot of acid. So my test is, once it starts pulling up like so, like that, and it takes quite a time to disappear. That's a sign when I know the acid is penetrated deep and it's enough depth to create a really nice rich color. So I'm adding A3 with just some red food coloring to the cervical areas, and I'm going to continue this all the way around. Now that we've added our A3, this is reddish brown color. Next step is, on this case, I'm going to use a B2 for the middle third, the body area of the structure. Now, really important is to clean your brush out in this thinning liquid. I don't want any of the previous A3 to contaminate the B2. So let's dispense some B2. And as you can see, this B2 is the same color. The yellow is the A3. So to help with that, I'll take a little bit of orange food color. Just a tiny drop does it. Mix that up. Like I told you before, the two methods to how I apply. As I did before, we counted 7 to 8 times with a saturated brush and added over there. Now when we get to the middle part of the tooth, it's basically 4 to 5 times that we're going to add. And then when we get to the incisal third, it's 1 to 2 times of stroking. So I'll demonstrate both techniques again. Now you see my A3 has come up pretty far here, but that's okay. When I add the B2, it's going to wash out a lot of that A3, so that I'll only have A3 on the cervical neck area. So you do not have to be too concerned if you do run up some color that it goes a little too far. You can wash that out again. So let's do the first method. We'll do it 4 to 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the same over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And like I say, I'm not too fond of that method, but my method is I apply until I see a pooling of acid, like so, and then it forms that little pool and starts to drain, like so. Let's just add some here. At the same time, we can just run little strokes up this middle area of these two lobes. And I'm going to continue this all the way around. The last thing I'm going to do with the B2, just add a little bit into the middle of these occlusal areas, just to give it some nice warmth. I'm going to leave these areas in white for now. I'm going to leave it unsaturated with stains, because I want nice white cast tips and creating this occlusal perimeter. So there's no need to add any stains into this area. What I am going to do is, at the end, I'll take some of the fluorescent acid and add it to those areas. You can only use the fluorescent on the light shades like A1, B1 and bleach. It does not work with any of the darker shades, the A2s, the A3, etc. Now that we've added our B2, my next step is I want to take A1 and I want to highlight these root areas. What I'm going to try and do is I want to try and, just as this case which is finished, you see how the root is shining through the pink tissue. So the whole goal is I don't want this area to be stained in pink acid stain. I want a nice A1 color, so I get that it's going to simulate that root structure, so that the eminence here looks like it's pushing through the tissue and shining through. So take some of my A1. This time I'll add a little bit of green. You can use whatever color you want. The same technique. So I'm just going to be adding more or less where I think the root structure is going to be, where I want it to be highlighted. I'm going to use the same technique. I'll paint until it pulls up and then wait for it to disappear. Just make sure to saturate these holding tags really well. If you don't get enough stain on these tags, after sinter, when you separate the frame from the base, you'll get white spots here. So make sure that these areas are really well saturated. So this last step, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone here. We're going to dispense some of the tissue B. And a little bit of the fluorescent. We'll add some blue food color to the fluorescent. A little bit of red to the tissue B. Tissue B is just like a light pink. Okay. Let's make sure, oops, our brush is clean, because I don't want any of the A1 getting into my tissue.